be? You kind of trailed off on that. I want to give you an opportunity to expand on what that vision might be.
Short answer is growth, smart growth through smart funded infrastructure, bringing industry here, taking advantage of the fantastic schools and education that's provided in our community.
Are there any specific bills that you're looking at that would address that? Give you an opportunity to talk more about that.
Yeah, I think right now I'm focused on preserving the republic, but as soon as we're done with that, then I'll focus on like the vision for the future.
Okay, and so with that, when you say preserve the republic, what are your three top key issues to do so?
I think first of all, we have to preserve some of these earned benefit programs like Social Security, Medicare, to make sure those that are most needy, like and Medicaid for that matter, for Shannon and Luca, preserve our norms and democratic norms that everybody's entitled to due process.
One of the business owners that spoke to me when they came in said they were losing employees because of what's going on with immigration. Are you hearing that from business owners? Are you doing anything to prevent that from happening?
Look, I haven't heard that particular complaint, but I've spoken to farmers out in the Piedmont and in Culpeper that are very concerned about cuts to programs that fund food, that nutritious food that goes to local school kids. I'm seeing cuts to veterans services in the form of like the freezes at the Fredericksburg VA, and I have no doubt that what you're saying is accurate. That people are afraid to come out to work. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Do you have any comment on the New York Times story about the books yesterday? Did you give money to your brother's
It was
book?
not. It was not New York Times. It was New York Post.
New York Post.
And, no, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bob, what do we make of this today? This is a big deal for you. Your first event in your new house.
It was. It was having two freshman congressmen that serve in kind of this unpredictable, uncertain time was wonderful, and they really shed a lot of honest light on what's possible, what we can look forward to, what we should be concerned about over the next, couple of years, and. I just thought they did a really, really good job kind of laying it out, what the federal government is dealing with right now.
What are you hearing from your chamber members about the current state of the economy, tariffs, employment? I'm hearing that some people are losing employees due to the immigration thing going on. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, well, okay, so I haven't heard that. In fact, I've been doing several roundtable discussions over the past week, one of them with very large businesses. And the interesting thing that I'm finding is that industries are coming together to figure out what's going on. It used to be, if you were Google and AWS and Iron Mountain, you did your separate fighting. Now they are like, whoa, this is impacting our industry. Yesterday we had Inova, Kaiser, Centera, and UVA Health all in the same room with AWS and Google and Iron Mountain, and all of those groups are each coming together to address how this chaos is affecting their industries. I will say there was some good news that is coming out of this conversation too. UVA Health in particular said that their nursing shortage has been fixed. They figured out how to use high school students graduating, putting them through training program for the very lower level nursing positions, and then they'll train them up to become RNs someday. They've got a pipeline now, and so they don't have any openings today for new nurses, which is a great story. The retail people, I had a round table last night with the retail population in Manassas City. Very, very concerned about what Main Street America is going to be feeling in the short term. Although the tariffs haven't hit their expense reports yet, all of their customers are not coming into their stores because they're worried about that discretionary income that they have, and they're not spending it right now. So we'll see. That's what my membership is saying. Overall, I think this event today was a fantastic kickoff to our new home.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is that good?
Perfect.
Some budget line item. I tell everybody $3 million, but I don't know the actual fact. to build a walkway around this pond. It's going to be amazing. Right next door is another hotel coming in, and over there, which was going to be an office building, but guess what? Nobody's building office buildings anymore. And so right over there, they're kind of in planning right now to talk about building a 4 or 5 story residential and more parking. So this is going to be the epicenter of the innovation district at some point. And so we're very, very excited about being brand new here. We got our certificate of occupancy about a month ago. So we're in our new home. So it'll be great. Anyway, I want to introduce the chairman of my board, Marty Noe, to come on up and get this thing started.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Marty Noe, president of Appliance Connection. And Bob touched on a really important point. There's a lot going on. I would suggest Bob and I have the opportunity to talk to business people all day long, every day. And we're hearing a lot of different stories. There are people saying, well, business is actually really good. Other people are saying business is really bad. Consumer-facing businesses are having a very different experience than sort of business-to-business type organizations. But the phrase we hear over and over again are the two words that I use more in the last 95 days than I've used in the last 10 years are uncertainty and chaos. Those are the words we use over and over again. And regardless of what you think about any one individual at any level of government, uncertainty and chaos are continue to be the buzzwords for this community. So it's very exciting for us to have our two brand new members of Congress representing our community here today. This chamber has a long history of having excellent relationships with our congressional leadership over the years, which is not necessarily true for every business organization in the country. But we're very blessed here. So for today's event, I'm really happy to introduce our moderator for today, who has a long history of business and chamber leadership and political activity, and that is Jennifer Siciliano, who is the Chief External Affairs Officer for UVA Health, the great organization after whom this very room is named. Jen oversees all aspects of UVA's relationships with external stakeholders for the organization. Prior to her appointment with UVA Health, Jennifer spent 14 years as Chief External Affairs Officer at Inova Health System. She oversaw all government, community affairs, marketing, and communication functions. And with over 2 decades of experience on and around Capitol Hill, and they keep saying Jennifer.
I know, call me Jen.
Yeah, Jennifer.
If you hear the name, it's my parents like calling me when I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I know. Mark, no one calls me that. Jen has served members of Congress in both the House and the Senate. Her career began in the House, where she held numerous positions. She continued as a House Director of Communications to the House Science Committee. Following her service in the House, she was asked to join the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee staff as Director of Communications. She's currently a board member and executive committee member of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber's Healthcare Industry Council. She's also a founding member of the Community Foundation of Northern Virginia's Business Women's Giving Circle. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communications and Public Relations from Marymount University and a Master of Arts in Public Communications and Government Relations from American University. This says please bring Jen to the podium. But she's so much better. So much better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you, everybody. It's so good to be here. It's actually really good to be back in Northern Virginia. I moved to Charlottesville to take this job that I'm in now, and I do miss all of my friends and family up here in Northern Virginia. So it's good to be here. So I have the pleasure of introducing our 2 congressmen that are here with us today. Let's start with Congressman Subramanyam, who proudly represents the 10th Congressional District. He's dedicated his career to improving the health, safety, and prosperity of every American. A lawyer who has worked in the private sector with several tech startups and started his own business. He previously served as the White House Technology Policy Advisor to President Obama. In the Virginia House of Delegates from 2019 to 2023 and the State Senate from 23 to 24. Suhas passed landmark legislation to lower the cost of tolls, utility bills, and prescription drugs. He also co-founded a caucus dedicated to bipartisanship and passed bipartisan bills to improve K-12 education, lower taxes, and address gun safety. He earned his BA from Tulane University and his JD from Northwestern University's Pritzker School of Law. He and his wife live with their 2 daughters in Loudoun County, where he has served in the community as a volunteer firefighter and EMT with the Loudoun Medical Reserve Corps. Please welcome. Congressman Vindman represents the 7th District of Virginia, which stretches across 11 localities in the central and northern areas of the Commonwealth. He came with his family to the U.S. as refugees fleeing Soviet Ukraine with less than $800 in their pockets. Spent 25 years in the Army as a paratrooper, infantry officer, and a JAG. Vindman also served on the National Security Council in the White House. Now, as your congressman, he is proud to serve as the only Virginian on the Ag Committee and utilize his experience on the House Armed Services Committee. He has dedicated his life to serving our country and decided to continue this mission in Washington. He and his wife Cindy are raising their kids in Prince William County, with his son attending William & Mary and a daughter in middle school. Please welcome. So Bob and Marty stole all my good warm-up jokes, because I was going to say, you guys have had absolutely nothing going on the first 100 days, nothing at all. So this is going to be a really short conversation, right? But I wanted to start off and ask each of you, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you handling all of the kind of stress and chaos that comes with this as a freshman?
Yeah, I always tell people that if I wasn't in Congress, I'd be at home yelling at the TV. So it's nice to be in Congress to yell at Congress instead. But I'm doing okay. I mean, I see it as there's a time where there's a crisis in our community in many ways, and I'm very honored that I have the opportunity to do something about it. So that's the way I look at it.
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to have great colleagues in Congress. We have really a remarkable freshman class. Suhas and I had a chance to get to know each other. We were at events last night together for Abigail Spanberger, who I think will be a fantastic governor. We're right down the hall from each other in Longworth, and so we work closely together. We share a boundary, and it's great to have those types of relationships at the outset. To the point that was made earlier, being a freshman right now is really interesting because nobody in Congress, whether you've been there for 50 years or whether you've been there for 100 days, has really ever encountered the type of environment that we're in right now. And so, in some ways, we're as well prepared to handle that as folks that have been there forever. And obviously, they know the process, procedure, they know how to move things around. But how do you respond to the chaos and confusion, lack of plan, and frankly a healthy dose of cruelty as well, because there's some of that. We're as well prepared as that as anybody. I will say, for the things that I can control, I feel really good about it. We've got a top-notch team. I spent a great deal of time. One of the things I learned in my military career is people. Select the people, and they'll take care of the mission. So I've got my district director is a retired Marine. My chief of staff is a Naval Academy Marine. We need a rebalance, frankly. We need some more Army folks in there. We're okay. But I've got a great team. We're fully staffed now. We just opened our 2nd district office in Fredericksburg earlier this week. We've introduced 3 bills. We've done a tremendous amount of work so far in the very short period of time that we're on the ground. What I can control, I feel good about. The chaos, cruelty, and uncertainty, not so good.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because what that requires is probably some serious relationship building across the lines and with your own colleagues too, on certain things to make sure that you're in line or talking about all the different things that are coming. Talk about that, how you created that reach either across the aisle or with others too.
Yeah, so I went to a couple panels actually before I was sworn in and a few after, and it was like this, only it was me and a Republican, and a question came up a lot. Do you want, how will you work across the aisle and be bipartisan? And the Republican straight up said, there's no need for me to be bipartisan. I was not sent here to be bipartisan. I don't plan to be bipartisan. That was one, literally word for word what one person said. And they might be right, actually, right? If they were too bipartisan for their very red district, it may get them in trouble. It may get them primary, and that's what's going on in our politics today, and that's a problem. And so there's this like notion that you have to always fight the other side. I think there's a lot to fight right now, but there's also common ground that we can find on different issues. And so, one issue that is important to my district and our region is immigration, especially like H-1B visas, and then protecting TPS and other work programs as well, and work visas. A lot of businesses rely on a workforce of immigrants, essentially, right? And so I've found some common ground. Republicans have sent bipartisan letters to the State Department, to USCIS, and other different agencies, just trying to find, okay, we're not going to agree on, Trump's deportation plan, right? We're not going to agree on El Salvador, but maybe we can agree on H-1B visas. Hopefully, I would hope. And so, just trying to find areas of common ground and work there, while still, fighting on the other stuff. And the other thing is, I try to make personal relationships with both sides of the aisle. I've been working out a lot in the gym, mostly to meet other people, because it's a great place. My locker is next to Jim Jordan. I would not know who Jim Jordan was, or he wouldn't know who I was if I weren't from our lockers being next to each other. But it's like yesterday someone asked me, "Can you talk to this guy Jim Jordan about something?" And I was like, "Yeah, next time I see him in the gym, I'll talk to him." But it's important to humanize.
Just don't let him spot.
Yeah, I don't want to let him spot. But and the ranking member, Jamie Raskin, is in there a lot too. But it's just like, trying to find just the humanity in other people. If they don't want to work with me, then they're not going to work with me. But I want to find areas of common ground, and I'm never going to give up on that, even if we can't agree on a lot of stuff right now.
So look, I've been a politician for all of 4 months now. I was striving to be one for the better part of a year and change, but I've got a tremendous amount to learn about that. But I will say the skill set that I've picked up over my professional career is I worked in the military with people from all walks of life, and didn't matter whether you're black, Hispanic, your creed, ethnicity, any of that. We're very mission focused. And so I take really a mission-focused approach to the work and what I'm trying to move forward. And I've already introduced, as I mentioned earlier, 3 bills, 2 of them bipartisan. I think the third one will turn out to be bipartisan as well. And it's by looking strategically at areas where I think we can have common ground and partners on the other side. So the first bill I introduced was a bill to help military families. And federal civil service, actually, was that combination. And I wrote the bill, and I found 4 Republicans to join, including the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, which is a pretty powerful position. And a week after I introduced that bill, the president actually changed his policy to adjust for the issue it caused with an executive order. So I look for an opportunity to work in a bipartisan way. And I will work with my colleagues on the other side where I can, and I'll hold the line on values and things that help constituents where I have to as well.
Yeah. And kind of in that vein, you started talking about legislation, and usually because of our proximity to DC, we're favorably in the spotlight. This time right now, it's got kind of a downside. How are you guys addressing some of the things that are going to start really, really affecting this area? Head on and quickly.
Yeah, if you'd told me, what's something that you'd love to work on, during the campaign last year that maybe people don't know about much, I'd say government efficiency, because I did that work in the Obama White House. Actually, my job was kind of the same mission as DOGE, only we did it much differently. I think much better, which is we work with the civil servants to try to find which programs are inefficient, and we try to help work with them to fix them and make them better and more efficient. We can bring in some new technologies. We start the Presidential Innovation Fellow Program, U.S. Digital Service, 18F, and all these programs that help use technology. The same technology that gets you pizza in 5 or 10 minutes can get you your benefits in the same amount of time, right? So that was the idea, and it was bipartisan. The Trump administration picked up a lot of the work that I did, and So it's really unfortunate to see it politicized now, but it is politicized, and it's wreaking havoc not just on our government, but on our region, because a lot of federal workers are in our districts here, and a lot of contractors as well are getting laid off or having their contracts canceled overnight. And then, it's going to hurt all American people, because the work that was being done here was actually helping all Americans be safer, be healthier, right? And so, one of the first bills I introduced was a bill about Doge. It was like a transparency bill. We want to know what Doge was doing. We want to know why they were cutting stuff. We wanted at least them to report back, because we were seeing, I'm on the oversight committee, and we were seeing, our job is to do oversight over what's happening, but no one from Doge was talking to us. They would only have these sidebar conversations with the speaker, and they wouldn't be accountable to anybody. And they were taking over people's private data, and they still are, right? Ordering all these firings that are illegal. And so we said, why don't we put some transparency around that? We got a ton of co-sponsors. I had Republicans that were actually agreed with the bill, but they just were too scared to sign on. That's really what's going on. So that was one thing, and I'm going to continue to put pressure on this administration with these mass layoffs and these cuts, because it's hurting everyone across the board. Even if you're not a federal worker or a contractor, it's going to hurt you. Let's say you get Social Security, cutting half the Social Security Administration, their employees, is going to hurt you, right? It's going to hurt your ability. We're already seeing people's appointments at Social Security Administration getting canceled, and they're telling you to come in person more, right? So we've heard a lot of this, and I've been trying to be proactive. I'll probably sign on to 30 or 40 other pieces of legislation to try to address these cuts. I think it's over 200 letters now that we sent, but the pressure, I think, has worked at times, even if it's 1 in 10. I think if 1 in 10, if I'm batting 100, that's okay with me. It's better than 0. I see it as my job to do everything I can and support the litigation that's happening. The second thing that's not being talked about, though, is this administration also wants to move the agencies themselves out of this area and to red states as like a punishment to us and a reward to the red states. And so I introduced a bill with Chris Van Hollen to basically say you have to justify the cost of that. And we know they can't in almost every scenario. They actually tried to move USDA, a couple small offices of the Department of Agriculture, to Kansas City as like a trial run. And it was a complete disaster. They lost 80% of their experienced workforce. Those sub-agencies could not focus, could not function properly. The programs were a mess. And the idea, in fact, if you told me these two offices should move to Kansas City, I'd be like, that's probably not the worst thing. You're closer to the regions that you're serving, right? But there's a reason why they're all here. They all work together. These agencies aren't silos, and having them in one region, especially if you're having people come in person now. Telework is another thing that's been really hurting us. It's hurting the traffic, putting a lot of congestion, putting a lot of pressure on our infrastructure. So that was a very long answer, but there's a lot going on. I'm on the oversight committee, and we're not doing real oversight. So I'm trying to at least find ways to do oversight that are thinking outside of the box, because we need it right now.
I want to give you the opportunity to answer that question, but I want to add a follow-up kind of piece on the end. So given all of that, how do we keep Northern Virginia attractive and keep people here and keep the businesses that are here?
Well, I'd say the fundamentals of this region have not changed. We have a great education system. We have world-class universities. It's a great place. We're near the nation's capital. It's a great place to raise a family. After 25 years moving around all over the place, I decided to stay here and raise my family, because it's just a wonderful place. The Constitution, at least many of the ideas in the Constitution, came from the 7th Congressional District, James Madison, Montpelier, and there's a tremendous amount of history. It's beautiful. I was in Culpeper yesterday, and those fundamentals have not changed, and so I have like a tremendous amount of optimism in that regard. All the wounds that we're seeing right now are self-inflicted, and so if you think about like the trajectory that this country was on in January, the beginning of January, I think ratings agencies, investment banks thought 15% chance of a recession, which is average for a new administration. It's about 15% every time. I think by the latest count, it looks looks like somewhere around 60% chance, and that's all self-inflicted. And there's a macro component to that, and there's sort of a micro at the district. The sort of geopolitical instability that has been injected into the world economy is going to have an impact. You can't tell from day to day whether there are tariffs or no tariffs, you know, we had sort of developed this system over the course of the 80 years that put in a lot of structural benefits for the United States, and a lot of that is being eroded, and some of it may never come back to the way it was. I think a fair amount. As you look at the micro scale here, if you look at my district, Suhas district, I have 55,000 federal civil servants. It's about 12% or so. I know Mason did a study that looked at the economic impact of eliminating or moving a lot of these jobs. It's 26 to 28 billion, right? A lot of that would be centered in northern and central Virginia. That would be economically devastating to this region. You add in the other 6% of contractors, and we have pretty magnificent, exquisite capabilities in this district that are not, like Dahlgren Naval Base has capabilities and does research that's not replicated anywhere else in the country. In my district, the rocket motors for the Javelin missile systems are produced, and so we have all of this tremendous knowledge that is being and infrastructure that is being sort of squandered. You know, this chainsaw approach to efficiency rather than a scalpel approach, and it has been done effectively in the past. I think Bill Clinton was able to balance the budget. So, I just as a last point to make, because I'm long-winded here, I signed on to the same bill that Suhas and Senator Van Hollen introduced. I signed on to a number of other efforts like this. We've sent also something like 50 plus letters to different departments and agencies. So we're fighting hard to make sure that we're taking care of our districts.
All right, you mentioned tariffs, so I'm going to start over here this time and say, I was going to save that to the end, but we'll talk about it now. And basically, the cost to local businesses. Talk about your approach to balancing, you know, tax-friendly policies with fiscal responsibility and efforts to mitigate the impact of all of this.
So look, I retired from the Army about 2.5 years ago, and in that short period of time, I started a business. I had a nonprofit. We were based out of Dumfries, actually, and we had to meet all the regulatory requirements. We had to meet payroll. I understand, you know, it wasn't a huge amount of time, but there's a responsibility there, right? You have a responsibility to the people that you've hired and to your customers. And I'm very much in favor of efficiency, and I think it can be done intelligently. It can't be done with a chainsaw, though. And so this tariff approach, my personal perspective is there's no plan. There's no rhyme or reason tonight. It's all based on whim. And I mean, what's the worst thing that can, for a business environment? It's unpredictability, right? You can't plan. You can't decide whether to invest, whether to let people go. So this is really the worst possible environment to be doing business, and we're sort of at the leading edge of that. You know, the president does respond to pressure, as I sort of demonstrated with the legislation that I introduced, and so I think there's some goodness there, and we have some great natural advantages. I don't know that I'm predicting a great deal of stability in the short to medium term.
Yeah.
The opportunity to answer it as well.
Absolutely. I agree with everything Congressman Vindman just said. I'll just add, tariffs are a tax, and they are the worst form of taxation because they're incredibly regressive. So they make everything more expensive for everyone. So you're talking about food, My family's grocery bill, I feel like has doubled in the past couple of years. You're talking about, we already had an inflationary environment, and it was actually getting better, and now you put tariffs on top of it. And I think this president thought that by doing that, he would actually lower interest rates, he'd actually help the bond market. He didn't take into account how little trust people have in him, and how his unpredictability in and of itself is so bad for us. So, what does this mean? Well, yeah, families like yours and like mine, it's rising costs for all of us. Businesses, I talked to a winery that's going out of business because they can't afford stuff anymore, and they export a lot of their wine now, so they're going out of business. I talked to a perfume shop that imports all of their materials to make perfume from the UK, and now even a 2% tariff would have basically been devastating to them. So the 10% minimum is really bad. Talked to another business that manufactures in America. They're a manufacturer, right? That's what we want. These tariffs are to bring manufacturing to America, but the equipment is actually made in Germany, and the people who even maintain the equipment are in Germany, and now they can't buy new equipment because it's suits. They're priced out. They're looking at laying people off now. And they're also looking at whether they should actually have manufacturing in other countries now to make up for the fact. So we're actually driving manufacturing away. I've heard a lot of people, there's this throat clearing about, tariffs can be good in certain instances, but I actually think that, it's NBA playoffs are going on right now. It's just like taking out our star players in the middle of a playoff game, right? It's like we actually had a really good system where we could build our economy, and the thing that we were actually missing that could actually grow industry and manufacturing was things like workforce training. We can protect certain industries with tariffs, but really, I talked to so many representatives from other countries and CEOs from other countries who want to bring industry and manufacturing to America, but the workforce part was a big part of it. And other things like, where to be, like what incentives there are. There are so many better ways to try to build our economy than this. This was the worst thing you could possibly do. And so it's going to be a lot of pain right now. And like Congressman Vindman said, it was very self-inflicted.
And if I may add, so to this, a couple of points that are really critical here. At the same time that these things are occurring, there's also major attacks on higher education, right?
My next question was going to
Okay.
be.
So I won't spend much time on
No,
it.
go ahead. Say what you
So
think.
higher education, right? So we're actually lowering the ability to train the workforce. And at the same time, I'm sure many of you have seen these memes, but the memes that are coming out of China of like Americans in sweatshops making sneakers and all that stuff, right? That's not the type of manufacturing that we want to bring back. We want to bring back high-end manufacturing. The areas where we need to have like the best trained, best equipped technical and engineering capabilities, that higher end manufacturing is what we want. We don't want to bring back necessarily some of these industries that there are comparative advantages in Vietnam and other places. We just want to train and have the higher end manufacturing.
So I'm going to rephrase the question I was going to ask a little bit, because you mentioned it in the workforce vein and in the higher education vein, not just higher education, all education. I think we tend to talk about all of the different problems or pieces of chaos in silos, but the reality is they all kind of are knit together in lots of ways, and that's a perfect example of the workforce and the education programs that I know that we've got here in Northern Virginia Community College, with George Mason, with some of the other universities up here. How do we do some of the things you're talking about with the attack coming on at the education as well piece of it, and how do we start talking about it as a whole, not just individual pieces?
So I guess what I'd say is just framing the issue is that there are attacks on some of our best educational institutions in the reimbursement rates for research that are highly problematic, and also for those schools that happen to be also our best schools in in potential taxation. And so it's just a massive wholesale attack that does not value education. When my family came to this country, I mean, education was a principal driver in allowing me to go from refugee to congressman. I went to great schools, public universities, got higher education degrees, and every time that was sort of like the next level, that took me to the next level. That's how we raise up our families. And there are major threats here, but I think there's also some opportunities here, because some of these great educational institutions are in Republican states that I would anticipate they have a vested interest in defending. And one of my colleagues that sits on the House Armed Services Committee, and I remember this very distinctly, we were talking to the Carrier Manufacturers Association, and he said the number one thing, it's all he spoke about, is workforce development. And so I think there is an opportunity to work in a bipartisan manner here, and we'll see what happens over the coming months.
Yeah. It's interesting. I see the public justification for some of these attacks on higher education. It's to prevent anti-Semitism at times. It's to prevent DEI and I think oppression against I guess white people. I don't. And there's a couple other. So there's these like public justifications. Immigration's another one. And then, but you see what they're actually trying to do and trying to ask, and I see it as some of these attacks are as power plays and as revenge plays. I think that's the only way I can justify or think about what's going on right now. Because why would you attack? They picked Harvard, right? For instance, and Columbia. They picked Harvard, I think, because kind of your average American sort of sees Harvard as this like elitist institution, right? They're not going after like the state schools yet, like publicly. Privately, they are in many ways. I'm sure the schools who are here today know. But I just, someone was telling me some of the stuff they asked of Harvard. Like they wanted to be part of the admissions process. Like that's what we're talking about here. Like they wanted to be very embedded in that school and control that school, which is a private institution. And so what's being asked, I mean, there was no way Harvard could say yes to any of their demands, given what they were asking. And so I think they're trying to pick this fight because they think it's politically popular. But let's talk policy, right? The impact of this is now a lot of researchers and a lot of scientists and a lot of innovators are going to other countries now. Canceling student visas, a lot of the folks who are doing cutting edge research are just going to do it somewhere else, or the research isn't going to happen at all, and then we'll never know what cancer would have been cured at some of these institutions because we didn't have the money. We just don't know what we're missing out on, right? The internet was started through a Defense Department initiative, and some of the folks who were involved in that live in Northern Virginia here, and they talk about how that would never have happened without those really key investments, right? So we don't know what we're going to miss out on. That's the hard part politically for me. It's trying to explain to people that you're missing out on stuff that you'll never know you missed out on, and it's really difficult and infuriating. Another one, this has nothing to do with your question. They're going after the reason why I think this is revenge too is because they're going after a funding platform called Act Blue, which basically is the small dollar funding campaign. It's how if you donate to a Democrat, you usually donate through Act Blue, and the fact that they would go after Act Blue and not the Republican one, it shows me that this is a political trip. And someone actually showed me a chart of how Hungary went into authoritarianism and other countries have. And I think they actually do have a plan, Eugene. I think it's to actually try to be Hungary right now because everything they're doing very much fits in line with some of these authoritarian countries. And so that sounds like an extreme thing to say, but what's going on right now is actually very much fitting the pattern. So, I've had this conversation with my Republican friends and family, and they think everything's great right now, but I've just told them, what if it was you being sent to El Salvador? What if it was your college? Try to put yourself in the shoes of some of the people being attacked right now.
I think it's the tariffs that there's not.
Oh, the tariff. Okay, got it. The plan is
there is a plan for those things.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's pivot because we were talking about workforce, and in that vein, cybersecurity vein in particular, the defense contractors and cybersecurity firms here in Northern Virginia major employers in the region are facing that unprecedented uncertainty, if you will. How can you guys leverage your positions to help protect those industries here?
Well, so I sit on the House Armed Services Committee. I'm on the City Subcommittee, which is the cyber IT and basically emerging technology. And also, as a 25-year Army guy, I'm on Sea Power, so makes perfect sense. But it's actually, we have, like I said, some pretty exquisite capabilities in that regard. Quantico is in the 7th Congressional District, Dahlgren is in the 7th Congressional District, a tremendous amount of R&D. And we have a lot of defense contractors. And so I think it's not 100% clear what the direction will be with defense contractors. I was in Culpeper yesterday, or 2 days ago, and had a town hall, and there was a gentleman, an Army veteran, that was working for an agency as a contractor. DOGE is supposed to be coming through today. He has no idea what they're going to find, whether they're going to, take away his job. And, one of the things that I find really troubling and frankly makes me angry is that 1/3 of federal civil servants are statistically are military, and that's because there's a hiring preference. The government sort of created that on purpose, and so a tremendous amount of folks that are getting fired are military, and so that's profoundly anti-veteran, I see room for growth in the defense in tech sector. We need to grow, frankly, in many different avenues because of the geopolitical competition. And to the earlier point being made, the research that's not going to be done in the United States, worst case scenario, it's done in China, right? Because they are investing heavily. And so, again, unclear, uncertain, which is probably the watchword for today of what that will look like. I hope that we can find a compromise. I think there's probably a absolute need for the defense budget to grow, but it has to be done in a smart way and frankly efficiently. We could cut some programs as well.
Yeah, I don't have military experience. I was in the state legislature. We don't do foreign policy, so my committee makes sense too. I'm the ranking member on military and foreign affairs on oversight. and so I'm the only freshman ranking member on that committee. And so I try to become an expert on this very quickly. And our military and foreign affairs right now is in a weird spot because we have a lot of contractors doing great work in this community, a lot of military families, a lot of veterans too. And I've talked to a lot of them, and they're not sure what's going on. Even the morale's been pretty low, and part of it is the leadership. The stuff that happened on Signal, that whole Signal thing. A lot of people would have been fired if everyone would have been fired if they were to do that, right? And so to see that the secretary is still there, I think is pretty puzzling to a lot of people. But on the kind of business side of things, it's hard to build products for the government when you're not sure if your program's going to get cut tomorrow, right? You want that predictability as a business.